everyone, welcome back to Glue La La. If you're new here, my name is Jess. Today I have 3 home decor projects that can be customized to fit any style. And as a little bonus, I'm also going to show you how to use up some of the yarn that you might have in your stash to make your own rope. Alright everyone, let's get started. For the first project, I found these really cool vases at the Dollar Tree, and I really like the little indents that are on them. So I took 3 of them and I cleaned them off really well with some rubbing alcohol. And then I found this 5-minute epoxy at the Dollar Tree that's made by the Super Glue brand. So I wanted to try that out rather than using the E6000. So it's like a little vial that has 2 sections to it, and when you squeeze it out, you mix the 2 substances together, and then you just add it on like you would any kind of adhesive, and it does set up in 5 minutes. And I really liked how the hold was on this epoxy. Then I gave all 3 pieces a couple coats of a matte black spray paint. And they always sell these really cool carpets at the Dollar Tree. They have them in a couple different colors. I've seen them in black and white like this one, and gray, and then beige and green too. So I cut strips off of one of the carpets, and then I cut this one a little bit too big to start, but you can see all I'm doing here is pulling threads out from either side to give it a fringy look. And then I just took, for this taller one that I had glued the 2 vases together, I just kind of spiral wrapped it around the center of the vase. That way it kind of hid that seam where the 2 vases were hot glued together, and it gave it a little bit of a different kind of look since it's kind of spiral wrapped around rather than just wrapped around the center. And then for the smaller one, I did a smaller strip just around the top of the vase. And you can see here better in this picture what I meant whenever I said that I pulled out some of the threads from either side, because it just gave it a really cool fringy look. And then once I had all of that glued into place, I took some yarn out of my stash. This is like a beige color with some little flecks of brown and black in it. And I took 16 strands that are all the same length, and I just knotted them together and taped them on my table. So to make a rope braid, you're going to take equal parts. So I have 8 strands in each section, and the right strand I twisted to the left 3 or 4 times, and then I crossed the left strand over top of the right strand. So you can see here again, the ones that are on the right, I'm going to twist to the left 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going to take the left strand and cross it over the right strand. That way, instead of just twisting the 2 sections together, you're actually locking it into place, because since you're twisting to the left on the right side and then crossing the left over the right, it'll lock those twists into place, and that's what's going to create the rope braid here. You can see how it's all locked into place. Otherwise, if you just twisted it without locking it together like that, it would just kind of start unraveling. So once I had it to the length that I like, I just put a knot in the bottom of each end, and I hot glued it kind of around the center and crossed it in the front of the vase. And then I did end up having to trim just a little bit off of each end of the fringes there, just to even them out a little bit. And then for the smaller vase, I did the same rope braid again, but this time I decided to not leave longer fringes at the end of the knot. I kind of cut them off and fluffed them up a little bit to make them almost look like a little pom-pom in the center there. And then you can see the 2 vases here. They look really cute paired together, and I just added a couple pieces of greenery just to dress them up a little bit. For this second project, I found these really cool hexagon shaped wall art pieces at the Dollar Tree. So I removed everything from the center, and I kept the backing, and then there are these little tabs that need to be removed on each of the frames, and I found the easiest way to do it was just to pull the little tab off and then use a mini screwdriver to take out the screw that's around each of the sections there. So the backing piece that was on the back of the frame, I just pulled the little stand off, and I drew a line down the center, and I cut it with my paper trimmer, and then you can see there's little notches there where they had it cut out for the screws. So that little extra piece on each side, I just cut that too, so that it was a little bit smoother on the edges. Then using that same carpet that I used earlier, I cut this out, and I should have left a little bit more room. I only left about a ½ inch the whole way around, but it would have been a little bit easier if I would have left closer to an inch the whole way around. So then I glued the little cardboard piece onto the carpet, and then you can see here I had to use my spatula to kind of fold the edges over because I didn't want to burn my fingers because I didn't leave enough room. So once I had one side cut or glued down, then I just cut off a little bit of the excess on the corners, and then I was able to fold over each piece the whole way around the thing. That way it kind of gave it more of a finished look then, since this does kind of fray apart pretty easily. I didn't want those little threads showing through. So once I had my cardboard covered, I ran a little bit of hot glue around the bottom, and I glued it back onto the back of one of the frames. And I just added a few dots of hot glue in the corners then too. And then I was able to take that piece and glue it onto the second frame, and then I used another piece of the cardboard, but I didn't cover it with fabric because this was just going to be the back side. So I glued that into place on the back side, and then glued all 3 frames together. That way there was a little bit of a gap between the 2 pieces of cardboard to create a small little pocket. Next, I took these giant craft sticks that I found at Walmart, and I cut them down to the length of each side of the hexagon. So I think that came out to be about 4 3/4 inches. And I was debating whether I should paint these or if I should stain them, but I actually really liked the natural color of the sticks, so I left them just plain. But the reason I did this is because I wanted to create a little more stability around the frame. So I just added a little bit of hot glue to the back of each stick, and then I laid it over all 3 frames. That way it kind of covered up those seams too, and it made it look a little more cohesive. And then you can see here I created another rope using some yellow yarn this time, and I did the same rope braid technique where I twisted to the left 3 or 4 times and then crossed the left over to the right. Once you start doing that, you'll get the hang of it, and you'll see what I mean by how it locks it into place. So I glued it around the inside edge of the pocket just to help finish it off a little bit more because there was a little bit of hot glue showing. And then the excess ends I just kind of tucked inside the pocket, and then I added just a bit of greenery to dress it up. And I said earlier in the video that you could take these pieces and kind of customize them to fit your decor. So if this is a little too modern for you, you could always paint it a little bit of like a distress color, or you could even add some rhinestones and glam it up a little bit. Okay, so the last project, I'm using these shower curtain rings from the Dollar Tree, and I spray painted them this matte gray color, and I was showing it to you on the white there. And I'm using 3 packs, so you need 36 rings, but 9 of them you can set aside and you don't have to do anything to. And the other ones, there's ridges on these rings, so I started about 2 ridges away from the clasp in the ring, and I just hot glued a little dab down on the inside and added some yarn, and I started wrapping around the ring. Now when I got to the center where the ring connects, I wrapped it several times just to build it up a little bit so that it was even with the other 2 sides. And then I continued wrapping until I got about 2 ridges up on the other side. So I didn't wrap the whole ring. That's why I spray painted them. I just wrapped the very bottom just to kind of hide where that little clasp is on the ring so that you couldn't tell that it was a shower curtain ring. And I did pick out 3 colors of yarn that I really liked. So I have this like tweed gray color, and then I'm going to be using a yellow and then a white chenille type of yarn also. So since I picked 3 colors, I wrapped 9 rings in each color. And then I found this little 7-inch mirror at Joann Fabrics. They do sell mirrors at the Dollar Tree sometimes too, circle mirrors, but they're a little bit smaller. And I knew I wanted this project to be just a bit bigger, so that's why I went with the 7-inch mirror. So those 9 rings that I didn't wrap any yarn on, I laid those out and I spaced them as even as I could around the outside of the ring. And then to hot glue them in place, I just kind of tilted them up a little bit, added a little hot glue on the bottom. And then once they were all in place, I ran a bunch of hot glue around the top of them just to really secure it in. Now, for the second row, I picked the gray color, and you're going to glue a ring in between each of the first row of rings. For me, the best way I found to do this was to add a little bit of hot glue where the two rings join, and then I kind of pulled the ring out a little bit and let some of the hot glue seep down in between, and then I pushed the ring back into place. So I took my time, and when I would push the ring back in, I would really hold it in place there for a long time to make sure that it was really set before I moved on, because I didn't want to take the chance of it coming apart. So then for the third row, I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow yarn on the rings. I'm just going to hot glue it in between two of the gray color rings, and I'm doing the same thing where I'm adding a few dots of hot glue where they meet, and I pull it out a little bit, let some of the glue seep down, and then push it back and really hold it into place until it's set. For the last row, it was a little bit easier to glue these ones on because I was stacking them right on top of the rings that had the yellow yarn in it. So I was able to actually just put hot glue right on the very bottom of the ring with the white yarn and glue it right to the top of the ring with the yellow yarn. So once I had that in place, I did add a little bit more hot glue over the top where the two seams of the rings meet, just to help make it a little bit more secure. And the reason I did it this way instead of staggering it is because I wanted it to be just a bit bigger. So this way it kind of expands the piece out a little bit more instead of following along with that staggering pattern like we did in the first three rows. This way it kind of pulled the pieces out just a little bit more. And I think this would be really cool to do in the winter also. Like if you wanted to use some of those really fancy textured yarns that they have that have like a little bit of glitter running through them, I think that would look really cool because it kind of has a snowflake shape when it's all finished. I was really excited with how this piece turned out. I had this in mind for a while, and I'm glad that it actually came together the way I had pictured it. And by the way, I have the worst time trying to film pieces that have mirrors in it. I don't know what it is. I can never quite get the right angle, but hopefully you get the idea of how this piece looks. I was kind of zoomed in a little bit here, but it did turn out really well, and it is a nice big piece to keep on your wall. Here's a final look at all of the projects. I don't know if I can pick a favorite. I feel like I say that every week, but I really like how all three of these pieces came out. They're just all so unique. And that rope braid technique that I taught you, I know some of you know this, but I work full-time as a hairdresser, and I actually do that rope braid a lot in hair whenever I'm doing updos, like for proms and weddings and stuff. So it was kind of fun for me that I could kind of bring my hair world into my craft world. Alright everyone, I hope you like these projects. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!